We live in a world overflowing with stimulation, information, technology, and endless noise competing for our attention. Every scroll, every notification, every distraction is a spark that lights up the brain's reward system. And while that spark feels good, when it becomes constant, it burns us out from the inside. See, your mind is not designed to run on constant input. It's designed to create, to imagine, to expand. But when we overuse anything, be it social media, entertainment, or even productivity, we disconnect from our natural rhythm. We begin to live reactively, not intentionally. Overuse is not just a habit, it's a pattern of the brain seeking safety and familiarity. It's comfort disguised as control. The moment you realize that every overindulgence numbs a part of your potential, you awaken the first power within you, awareness. Once you become aware, you can choose. You can pause before reacting, you can breathe before reaching, you can redirect your focus from what drains you to what drives you. This is where transformation begins, in that sacred space between stimulus and response. That space is your freedom. It's where your brain begins to rewire, where your energy resets, and your identity starts to evolve. You don't have to eliminate everything that tempts you, you have to govern it. Mastery is not about denial, it's about direction. When you channel your focus with intention, the same energy that once distracted you can now propel you toward growth, creation, and clarity. So, as you navigate the effects of this modern world, ask yourself daily, is this fueling me or consuming me? Because the truth is, what you feed your mind, your brain becomes. And when you master your attention, you master your destiny. Awareness creates freedom. It is the very foundation upon which transformation begins. Most people move through life unaware of the patterns running their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. They wake up, repeat yesterday's routines, and wonder why nothing changes. But awareness is the act of waking up inside your own life. It's the moment you stop operating on autopilot and start observing your mind as the instrument it truly is. Without awareness, you're simply reacting to the world. With awareness, you begin to create it. Think about it. Every behavior you've ever repeated, every emotion you've ever felt, every thought you've allowed to loop endlessly in your head, they've all become neural pathways, well-worn roads in your brain. They fire automatically because your mind is efficient. It memorizes patterns. Awareness interrupts that automation. It's like turning the lights on in a dark room. Suddenly, you see what's always been there. You begin to notice the triggers that pull you toward overuse, the impulses that make you reach for your phone, food, validation, or distraction. In that noticing lies power, because what you can observe, you can change. Freedom doesn't come from control, it comes from consciousness. When you are aware, you no longer need to fight your habits with sheer willpower. You understand them. You see them as programs, not permanent identities. You stop judging yourself for being stuck and start becoming curious about why. Curiosity is one of the most powerful states of the human mind. It shifts your focus from resistance to discovery. You start asking questions like, what am I really seeking in this moment? Or what emotion am I trying not to feel? And every time you ask, you peel back another layer of conditioning. Awareness is not passive, it's deeply alive. It's the space where you begin to separate the real you, the conscious, creative, limitless being, from the conditioned self that simply reacts. That separation is freedom. You begin to see that your thoughts are not commands, they're options. Your emotions are not facts, they're feedback. You are not what happens to you. You are the awareness that perceives it. This realization is profound because once you stop identifying with your thoughts, they lose their control over you. You no longer get swept away by the mental noise that drives overuse or self-sabotage, but awareness requires presence. You cannot be aware if you are constantly distracted. That's why the modern world challenges us more than ever. Everything is designed to fragment your focus. When you practice awareness, you take your attention back from the chaos. You start to notice how your energy feels in different environments, conversations, and digital spaces. You learn to pause, breathe, and observe instead of instantly reacting. That pause is the birthplace of choice, and choice is the essence of freedom. When you live with awareness, you start making decisions that align with your higher self, not your conditioned impulses. You begin to notice the subtleties, how a certain thought lowers your vibration, how an act of gratitude expands it, how peace feels different from pleasure. You start to value stillness over stimulation, depth over distraction, purpose over comfort. This doesn't mean you withdraw from the world, it means you engage with it consciously. You learn to use technology, emotions, and habits as tools, not masters. In time, awareness becomes your natural state. You no longer seek freedom outside yourself because you realize it was within you all along. Freedom is not the absence of boundaries, it's the ability to choose them. It's not the escape from influence, it's the power to navigate it. And it all begins with awareness the moment you open your eyes to who you are, what you've become, and who you have the potential to be. When you cultivate awareness daily in your thoughts, your breath, your choices, you stop being a product of the past and start becoming the architect of your future. That is true freedom. The brain learns through repetition and emotion. This simple truth explains why we become who we are and why it's often so hard to change. Every experience, every thought, every reaction you've had has left an imprint on your brain. Neurons that fire together wire together, meaning the more often you think, feel, or do something, the stronger that pathway becomes. Over time, repetition turns into identity. You don't just perform the behavior anymore, you become it. That is the incredible power and the potential danger of repetition. Repetition without awareness can create cycles of limitation. When you repeat disempowering thoughts like "I'm not enough," "I can't change," or "it's just who I am," your brain wires those beliefs into your sense of self. You start living out those patterns automatically. The brain doesn't distinguish between what's true and what's repeated. It learns through consistency and emotion. This is why people remain stuck in the same emotional states: anxiety, anger, self-doubt, not because they want to, but because those feelings have become neurologically familiar. The mind gravitates toward what it knows, even if it's painful, because familiarity feels safe. But repetition, when guided by consciousness and emotion, becomes the most powerful tool for transformation. Think of it like reprogramming your inner operating system. When you intentionally repeat empowering thoughts, visualizations, and emotions, you begin to carve new neural pathways. Your brain starts to memorize new ways of being. That's how you shift from reaction to creation, by repeatedly embodying the emotions and thoughts of the future you want, not the past you've lived. Emotion is the fuel that gives repetition meaning. The brain remembers what the heart feels. You can say affirmations 1,000 times, but if they're hollow, if they carry no emotional resonance, they remain words without power. The real shift happens when you feel the truth of what you're saying. When you practice gratitude, not as a thought, but as a state of being. When you visualize your future and feel it as though it's already here. In those moments, you're teaching your brain and body to live in alignment with a new reality. Every emotional experience releases chemicals in the body. Joy releases dopamine and serotonin. Stress releases cortisol and adrenaline. These chemicals don't just affect how you feel, they signal your brain to reinforce the experiences that cause them. That's why when you're constantly reacting to negativity or stress, your brain learns to crave that same energy. It's addicted to familiarity, not happiness. To change that, you must consciously repeat elevated emotions: peace, love, focus, gratitude, until your brain begins to recognize those as your new normal. Repetition is not about perfection, it's about persistence. The same way the body builds muscle through consistent training, the brain builds new pathways through consistent attention. Every time you interrupt an old pattern, every time you choose calm instead of chaos, focus instead of distraction, compassion instead of judgment, you strengthen a new neural circuit. It may feel small at first, but with repetition, it becomes your natural response. What's remarkable is that your brain is always listening. Every thought sends a signal, every emotion teaches it something. When you pair repetition with emotion, you're essentially giving your brain new instructions for who you wish to become. The key is consistency, not intensity. A few minutes of intentional thought, felt deeply, practiced daily, can reshape the architecture of your mind. So the next time you catch yourself reacting the same way, remember, your brain is just doing what it's been taught. And that's good news because what's been learned can be unlearned. What's been wired can be rewired. Through repetition and emotion, you hold the power to rewrite your mental programming, shift your emotional identity, and create a future that reflects the highest version of yourself. The brain will always learn. The question is, what are you teaching it? Balance is power. In a world that glorifies extremes, endless work, constant stimulation, unbroken pursuit of success, balance has become a forgotten art. Yet true strength doesn't come from doing more. It comes from aligning energy, mind, and emotion in harmony. Balance is not stagnation. It's not about living a neutral, quiet life where nothing moves. Balance is dynamic. It's the ability to adjust, to recalibrate, to remain centered even when life tilts to one side. It's the calm within motion, the stillness within chaos, the awareness that lets you navigate intensity without losing yourself to it. When you lose balance, you lose clarity. Overuse of anything, even the things that bring pleasure or growth, leads to imbalance. You can overthink, overwork, overtrain, overgive, or overconsume. And when you do, the very thing that once served you begins to drain you. The body tires, the mind fogs, the spirit dims. This is not weakness, it's feedback. The body and mind are intelligent systems constantly communicating with you. Fatigue, burnout, irritability. These are not flaws to suppress, but signals to listen to. They whisper something inside needs realignment. Balance begins when you start listening. The human nervous system thrives in rhythm, not overload. There's a natural cycle to energy, input and output, action and rest, creation and reflection. When you ignore this rhythm, you move against the current of your biology. You can force progress for a while, but eventually the imbalance manifests as stress, exhaustion, or emotional disconnection. Balance, then, is not a luxury. It's a biological necessity for sustained power. Think of an athlete who trains hard but knows recovery is what builds strength. The same principle applies to your mental and emotional energy. Rest is not a break from progress, it is part of progress. Finding balance requires self-awareness and honesty. You have to ask, what am I giving too much to, and what am I neglecting? The answers are not always comfortable, but they are liberating. Often, imbalance comes from attachment to validation, productivity, or control. You feel safe when you're doing more because it gives the illusion of worth, but balance asks you to step back, to trust that your value is not defined by motion, but by presence. It challenges you to rest without guilt, to slow down without fear, to exist without always performing. When you cultivate balance, you begin to access a deeper form of power, focused, intentional, and steady. A balanced mind can think clearly. A balanced heart can love without depletion. A balanced spirit can lead without ego. You begin to operate from alignment, not adrenaline. You stop reacting and start responding. This is the power of centered energy. It multiplies efficiency, creativity, and peace. Balance doesn't make you less driven. It makes you unstoppable because it keeps you sustainable. There will always be forces trying to pull you off center, temptations, expectations, distractions. But balance is a practice, not a destination. It's the daily act of checking in with yourself, recalibrating your thoughts, and redirecting your focus to what truly matters. Some days, balance means pushing forward. Other days, it means letting go. Both are acts of strength. Ultimately, balance is the gateway to mastery. It allows you to engage fully with life without being consumed by it. When your body, mind, and energy work together in harmony, you become powerful, not because you dominate, but because you flow. You stop chasing control and start embodying it. That is where true power lies, not in doing everything, but in knowing what to give your energy to, when to move, and when to pause. Balance is not the absence of extremes, it is the wisdom to dance between them. Energy flows where attention goes. This is one of the most powerful principles that govern human experience. Whatever you focus on, you feed. Your attention is not just a mental process. It is an energetic investment. Every thought, every emotion, every moment of focus sends energy toward the object of your attention, strengthening it, expanding it, and giving it life. The challenge is that most people don't consciously choose where their attention goes. They allow the world to decide for them. Notifications, opinions, fears, and distractions hijack their focus until their energy is scattered and drained. When your attention is fragmented, your power is diluted. You begin to feel tired not because you lack energy, but because you leak it in 1,000 directions. You think about the past, worry about the future, and react to everything around you. Each reaction costs energy. Over time, this pattern leads to emotional fatigue and mental clutter. But the moment you reclaim your attention, everything changes. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become a creator of experience. The direction of your attention determines the direction of your life. Imagine your attention as sunlight. When it's dispersed, it warms everything slightly, but when it's focused through a lens, it becomes powerful enough to ignite. That's what happens when you concentrate your focus. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions align toward one purpose, and energy begins to amplify. This is why people who live with clear intention seem magnetic. They are not more gifted or lucky, they're simply more focused. They direct their energy with precision instead of scattering it through distraction and doubt. Attention is not just mental, it's emotional and spiritual. When you give your attention to something, you form an energetic relationship with it. If you constantly focus on problems, you feed their presence in your life. If you focus on gratitude, you expand it. This doesn't mean ignoring reality or denying pain. It means choosing where to invest your awareness. You can either nurture growth or fuel limitation. Whatever you repeatedly attend to becomes your emotional home. If your attention is anchored in negativity, you live in a state of lack. If it's anchored in possibility, you live in a state of expansion. Training your attention is a form of mastery. It begins with mindfulness, noticing when your thoughts drift, when your emotions pull you away, and gently returning to the present moment. This is not control in the rigid sense, it's presence. The more present you are, the more deliberate your energy becomes. You start to feel when something drains you and when something elevates you. That awareness helps you redirect your focus from what steals energy to what strengthens it. Your energy follows your beliefs, and your beliefs are sustained by your focus. If you want to change your life, start by changing what you give attention to daily. Pay attention to the quality of your thoughts, the tone of your inner dialogue, and the emotions you feed. Ask yourself, where is my attention right now? Is it creating growth or maintaining limitation? That single question can transform your state instantly. The truth is, energy doesn't lie. If your attention is rooted in fear, you'll feel contraction. If it's rooted in love, gratitude, or purpose, you'll feel expansion. You don't need to fight for energy, you only need to stop wasting it on what doesn't matter. When you focus on your goals with clarity, on your values with conviction, and on your growth with consistency, your energy becomes unstoppable. In the end, your life is the sum of where your attention has been. Every great transformation begins with a shift in focus from distraction to direction, from reaction to intention. Protect your attention like it's sacred, because it is. It's the force that shapes your reality, the bridge between thought and manifestation, the invisible current that turns imagination into experience. Wherever your attention goes, your energy flows, and wherever your energy flows, your life grows. Regulation builds resilience in a world that constantly pulls us toward extremes, emotionally, mentally, and physically. The ability to regulate ourselves becomes the foundation of strength. Regulation is not suppression, it's mastery. It's the art of being able to experience an emotion without becoming consumed by it. It's the power to pause before reacting, to breathe before breaking, to choose before collapsing into old patterns. When you learn to regulate your inner world, you stop being a prisoner of your circumstances and become the author of your response. Every human being faces waves of emotion, stress, fear, anger, sadness, excitement. These are not signs of weakness, they are signals from the body and the nervous system. But when those signals go unmanaged, they can overpower your decisions, distort your thinking, and drain your energy. Regulation is what allows you to ride those waves instead of being pulled under by them. It's the bridge between awareness and resilience, the skill that transforms emotional chaos into grounded strength. The nervous system thrives on balance when we experience constant stimulation, whether it's through technology, pressure, or internal worry. It pushes the body into survival mode. The heart rate quickens, cortisol rises, and the brain starts reacting instead of reasoning. Over time, this state of overactivation becomes the default. You wake up tense, go through the day on edge, and fall asleep mentally exhausted. Regulation is the process of teaching your body and brain how to return to equilibrium. It's reminding yourself that you are safe, capable, and in control. Resilience isn't the absence of stress, it's the ability to recover from it. The stronger your regulation, the faster your recovery. You become like a tree in the storm, flexible, not fragile. You may bend, but you don't break. And this strength doesn't come from resisting emotions, but from allowing them to move through you consciously. When you regulate, you give emotions permission to exist without letting them dictate your behavior. You acknowledge your anger, your fear, your sadness, but you choose your response instead of being hijacked by reaction. Regulation starts with awareness of the body. Every emotion has a physical expression, a tightening of the chest, a shallow breath, a clenched jaw. The moment you notice these sensations, you create space between the feeling and the reaction. That space is your power. In that moment, you can take a deep breath, ground yourself, and bring your attention back to the present. Breath work, mindfulness, and intentional reflection are not just spiritual practices. They are physiological resets that bring your nervous system back to harmony. When you practice emotional regulation consistently, you rewire the brain. You teach it that calm is safe, that focus is powerful, and that presence is your natural state. Over time, your baseline state changes. You become less reactive, more patient, more adaptable. Challenges still arise, but they no longer control your inner world. This inner stability becomes the root of resilience. You realize that peace is not something you find. It's something you build through daily self-regulation. In a society that glorifies constant motion and emotional highs, regulation may seem like slowing down, but in truth, it is acceleration toward mastery, because when you can manage your inner state, nothing outside you can overpower you. You move from chaos to clarity, from reactivity to creation. You no longer waste energy on emotional turbulence. Instead, you channel it toward growth, learning, and contribution. Regulation builds resilience because it connects you back to yourself. It teaches you to hold steady in the face of uncertainty, to act from wisdom rather than impulse, to maintain balance even when life feels unpredictable. It's what allows you to stand in the center of the storm and still see clearly. And in that clarity, you discover something profound. Resilience isn't built in moments of comfort. It's forged in moments of regulation, where you choose peace over panic and awareness over automatic reaction. That is where your true power lies. Conscious choices rewire the mind. Every decision you make, no matter how small, sends a signal through your neural pathways, strengthening certain patterns and weakening others. The brain is not a fixed organ. It's a living network of connections constantly shaped by your actions and attention. Every time you make a conscious choice to pause instead of react, to speak with kindness instead of anger, to stay focused instead of distracted, you are literally reshaping your brain. You are teaching it who you want to become. This is the science and the beauty of neuroplasticity, the ability of your brain to reorganize itself based on the choices you make and the experiences you create. Most people live unconsciously, repeating the same choices every day and wondering why life never changes. They wake up and run the same mental programs, replay the same emotional patterns, and repeat the same habits that keep them trapped in yesterday's version of themselves. But when you begin to make choices from awareness rather than habit, you break the cycle. Conscious choice interrupts the automatic. It gives you the power to act instead of react, to create instead of conform. It's the moment you say, I no longer want to live by the memory of the past. I want to live by the vision of the future. Each choice carries energy. When you choose from fear, you reinforce limitation. When you choose from intention, you reinforce expansion. The brain learns through repetition, so each conscious choice becomes a vote for the identity you're building. If you choose discipline over distraction today, it becomes slightly easier tomorrow. If you choose gratitude over complaint, your brain begins to look for more things to appreciate. Slowly, your mental wiring changes from scarcity to abundance, from chaos to clarity, from reaction to creation. But conscious choice requires presence. You cannot make a conscious decision when you're lost in unconscious thought. This is why mindfulness is not just a practice, but a prerequisite for transformation. You must learn to slow down enough to notice your impulses that split second before you react, that subtle emotion that tries to control you. In that space between impulse and action lies your greatest freedom. That's where you can choose differently. Every time you do, you expand that space a little wider, giving yourself more room to think, breathe, and evolve. Your brain is like a garden. The seeds are your thoughts, and your choices are the hands that decide which seeds to water. If you keep watering doubt, fear, and distraction, those plants grow tall and strong. But if you consciously start watering courage, discipline, and faith, the garden transforms. It doesn't happen overnight, but it happens inevitably because your brain always reflects the quality of your choices. What you feed it, it becomes. Conscious choice is also an act of alignment. It's when your mind, body, and spirit move in the same direction. When you choose with intention, you feel coherence, that deep sense of internal harmony that tells you you're living in truth. In that state, your actions are not reactions. They are expressions of who you've decided to be. Life begins to flow because you are no longer fighting against yourself. You're not being pulled by the momentum of the past. You're being guided by the energy of purpose. The more you practice conscious choosing, the stronger your mental architecture becomes. You begin to notice that you no longer fall for old emotional traps. The triggers are still there, but they no longer define you. You've rewired your responses. You've trained your mind to follow your will, not your wounds. That's the essence of personal evolution, transforming automatic behaviors into intentional actions. In the end, your destiny is shaped not by the circumstances you face, but by the choices you make in response to them. Every moment is an opportunity to rewrite the code of your consciousness. When you choose with awareness, you're not just changing your behavior, you're sculpting your brain, redefining your identity, and creating a future aligned with your highest potential. Your mind becomes a reflection of your choices, and your choices become the blueprint of your new reality.